Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Triangle Defense Podcast. Sorry for the little, it's been a while since we uploaded. I was on vacation last weekend, and I'm feeling a little sick right now, too, so that's why it's been a little over a week since we have uploaded. But we're back to bringing you weekly NBA content here. We are getting very, very close to the regular season starting, so we have a ton of content we have to push out before that starts. I'm your host, Alex Ortega.
And I'm Jonathan King.
And we have a pretty, we're going to be talking today about one underrated player on every NBA team, Western Conference edition for this episode. But I was texting John earlier, and he told me he has something he wants to talk about first. So let's hear it.
Yeah, I got a good one. Who do you think the better player was, Carmelo Anthony or Paul Pierce?
We're talking all-time career, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm gonna go with Paul Pierce.
I think I would too. But would that answer change if Melo won a ring as a starter on the Lakers this year?
I don't think it changes if Melo wins a ring as a starter on the Lakers. I think it changes if he would win it, if he won it as a starter on Denver or New York.
Okay.
I think. It's not like. Melo's gonna start for this Lakers team with
I have
Ariza.
no idea.
Trevor Ariza's out for I believe they said 6 to 8 weeks.
He sucks anyways. I'm not a Trevor Ariza fan.
I'm a huge Trevor Ariza fan.
I saw what he did in the Western Conference Finals in 2018.
I'm a big Trevor Ariza guy. I can't even.
He missed 12 threes in a row or something.
Yeah.
A big part of that 0 for 27. So
that was atrocious.
And then he jumped ship to Washington or whatever 13th team he's on because he's just been passed out like a blunt in the NBA.
Literally, yeah, exactly. But I don't think because he probably is going to start for this Lakers team. There's a couple different lineups they can do, and especially with Trevor Ariza being out. But what's Melo going to contribute? Maybe 10 points per game?
Yeah, probably.
10 points per game and being a defensive liability. I don't think that changes him. It might change his discussion all time, but I don't think it puts him over Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce was I would say the second best player on that Boston team. Yeah, because he was more valuable than Ray Allen was in that playoff run and in the finals run and in that entire Big Threes run. So I think just being a big part of a championship team the way that he was, I don't think that I could put Melo all time over.
Do you think he was a better scorer than Melo?
No. I will give that to Melo. Melo's a better shooter. He's a better scorer on all three levels. Yeah. But Paul Pierce was still a great scorer in his prime, no, I have to give that nod to Paul Pierce. And I know Melo has a lot of, nostalgia kind of bias around him, and that's a lot of what carries the narrative of people. There's a lot of people that look at Melo as like an all-time great, like generational talent.
He got close, didn't he?
He was close, but he was like he's like the Dominique Wilkins of our time, basically.
That's a pretty good comparison.
Great scorer he's flashy. People love to watch him, all of that. But does it lead to winning basketball? Yeah. Does it lead to winning basketball? No. It didn't for Dominique, and it never did for Melo either.
Yeah. No. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we can get into it then. That seems to be a debate that is worth discussing these days at some lengths, but. Pierce was, I don't know. Yeah, he has the ring, and he was a big factor in that ring. And Melo hasn't had much in the way of team success.
No, exactly. So now it's got to go to Pierce. If there's any other head-to-head player comparisons you guys would like to hear us talk about as well, too, please drop it in the comments. Don't do anything stupid, like a LeBron, Alex Caruso, something like that. Just give us
Or
real
do it.
ones that are real, or do it. Yeah, maybe give us real things we can discuss that way. But moving into our topic for the day, it is the most underrated player on every Western Conference team. We will be doing the Eastern Conference in the next episode, so stay tuned for that. So going down this list, we're going to start with the Pelicans. And me and John, we don't speak before this. We know the topic, but we always just wait to hear what the other has to say. So, what did you bring today, John, for the Pelicans?
I picked Devonte Graham. He's going to be replacing Lonzo sort of in that role. Solid scorer off the bench and starting sometimes for the Hornets behind. It's kind of a stacked guard rotation.
I do like Devonte Graham.
Yeah.
He did have a down year last season, and I think that is partially why he's become a little bit of an underrated player.
Yeah.
He does. He's good at all the things that Lonzo wasn't great at. I mean, Devonte, he's a better scorer, he's a better shooter, and all of that. But you're giving up a little bit of defense going from Lonzo to Devonte Graham.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely think he could be a
You think
really
he's a better?
important.
You think he's a better shooter than Lonzo?
I mean, what were Lonzo's percentages? I mean, he was better last season. I mean, his numbers were atrocious. His first probably like 2 seasons in the league. Like,
You talking Lonzo?
yes,
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. On the Lakers, he was a totally different player than he is now. I would say.
no, his numbers were disgusting. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're probably both like upper 30-something% 3-point shooters.
Yeah, I'm pretty on a decent volume. I think Lonzo's. I think he's a better sniper. Graham can obviously create his own shot. I think more than Lonzo can.
Yeah, definitely.
Something that Lonzo doesn't really have as a guard or a point guard, I should say. He has the flashes of the full court transition passing stuff like that, but in the half court, he's really more of a shooting guard, and he's pretty good at it. He's gotten pretty good at it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And moving on to my underrated player I had for the Pelicans, I'm gonna go with Josh Hart. He is a solid role player, and the reason I say he's underrated is because we went pretty deep into free agency, hearing no Josh Hart talk.
Yeah.
I mean, some people didn't. I mean, he was a restricted free agent, but some people don't even know that he was a free agent this summer. And there was no talk of anybody. I heard of no offers. I heard of nothing.
He's on the Pelicans, so no one cares.
Yeah, exactly. He averaged 9 points per game on 43% shooting, but he was hurt a lot last season, so he probably slides into the starting lineup now. I would think so.
Yeah, who would start over him?
Probably Nickeil Alexander-Walker, but still,
I'd
probably rather have Josh Hart start.
Yeah.
So he's either going to start or just be a really important player off the bench.
Yeah.
So yeah,
good shooter.
For that reason, I think Josh Hart has become a little underrated.
Yeah.
And
what's weird about Josh Hart that people kind of forget, sort of off topic, but when he was at Villanova, he was like the best college player in that season for college players. Like, he's really not that kind of guy in the NBA. He's much more of a supporting role player kind of guy. But in college, he was like the best player in the NCAA for like a season.
Yeah, no, definitely.
People forget that.
What was that? That was the 2016 Villanova team, I believe. 2017 Villanova team.
I don't know the year.
Yeah, I think so. But
he was phenomenal. I think it was might have been a year before Jalen Brunson came. But he was really phenomenal.
He played with Brunson too, because Jalen Brunson's my age, and I think he had 2 seasons with Josh Hart, I believe.
Okay.
But and I mean, Hart, he was that guy in college, but I mean, he's made himself a solid role player in the league.
Stepped out of the Lakers shadow.
Right. Yeah. Moving on to the next team, it's the Dallas Mavericks. I am gonna go with Dorian Finney-Smith. He has a skill set of a small forward, but has the length and athleticism to be a pretty solid front court player as well too. Solid defender, and he helps hide a couple other guys on the starting lineup that aren't great defensively. And if the Mavs take a big leap this year, I mean, he's going to have to play a big role in that. So I'm going to go with Dorian Finney-Smith on the Mavs. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I like Dorian Finney-Smith. I don't, I'm not crazy about him. He does his job. He's not going to explode for points or not a monster defensively or anything. He's just solid.
Right.
This one gave me kind of trouble a little bit because I don't even know if this guy's over or underrated, really. I think he is just because he's really better than people think, and it's Tim Hardaway Jr. Like arguably the second best player on the Mavericks.
He was for that.
Yeah,
for that.
And I don't think he gets that kind of credit.
They
know he's there. They know he's a great scorer, but really he's been way better than he was on the Knicks, and it picks up the slack a lot for the Mavericks scoring wise. So I think he is underrated. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think a lot of that comes with just being on the Mavericks. There's a few guys on this team that you could look at as underrated. Dorian Finney-Smith, Tim Hardaway, Dwight Powell.
There are a lot
I think it just comes with
interesting kind of Mavericksy players almost. It's almost like the Spurs from a couple of years ago.
Right.
Yeah, where it's like you look at a guy and it's like, well, if he was on any other team, he'd be kind of shit. But he's on the Mavericks and he's in the system and he's pretty damn good in the system.
Right, it's like a Tiago Splitter, basically, is what I'm thinking of when you said that. Yeah,
Tiago Splitter, Boris Diaw. Like Boris Diaw on any other team, you're like, oh, no one gives a shit.
Yeah.
But on the Spurs, he's an animal. He's this passing god. He's this crazy player. So
yeah, no, definitely. But yeah, I think those two are both players that I look at as underrated. And moving on to the next team, it's the Denver Nuggets. I think for the Nuggets, I'm going to go with Monte Morris. He averaged 10 points per game on 48% shooting from the field in the 47 games he played. Even if Campazzo starts in Jamal Murray's absence, I expect Morris to be one of the best backup point guards in the league. He's not a solid defender, but he's a solid scorer, passer, and not to mention he rarely turns the ball over. I saw some crazy stat. I forgot what it was. I think he's right behind Chris Paul on just not turnover. It was just a turnover ratio. Yeah, no. So I mean, nobody really talks about that, and maybe he starts. Maybe I would still assume Campazzo starts because they would use Morris as kind of like a scoring punch off the bench. But I expect him to have a big role on a Nuggets team that is looked at to be a top 4 or 5 team in the West.
Yeah, he was my pick for a bit. That's not who I picked, but I like Monte Morris. I picked a guy, and I can't believe I'm saying this in 2021, going to be 2022. But if we're talking about underrated guys that are going to help the Nuggets, I picked Jeff Green. Really underrated signing.
I love that signing for them.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of Jeff Green we're going to get because you never know. But for the Nets, he was super solid. Like he was starting 5 for them for a lot of games, which was insane. And was productive. He had a great plus minus and could fit with the offense and everything. Could shoot obviously and defend. Hold his own against big. So I picked Jeff Green.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I don't think a lot of people were talking about that, but I loved that addition when I saw that, and I think he's going to be really great for the Nuggets.
Yeah.
And moving on to the next team, one that I was actually pretty excited to talk about, it's the Golden State Warriors. There's a lot of things up in the air regarding that team going into next season, but this was one of my favorite additions of the entire offseason. It's Otto Porter Jr. A lot of people forgot about this guy, just because he can't stay healthy. I mean, us as Bulls fans, we know in those maybe 2 games he played for Chicago, he was a really effective player out there. But if he can stay healthy this season, he brings elite 3-point shooting, 40% from beyond the arc and much needed switchability on the wings for them too. I see a possibility that he ends up closing a lot of games for them.
Yeah, I had Otto Porter too. He's like you said, he's really great when he's on the court. He's like he can be a better Harrison Barnes. He can just spot up and shoot. Because he's he led the league in 3-point percentage a couple years ago, which people forget, I think.
That was that Wizards year, right?
Yeah, his contract year, funny enough.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But did you see that article? I want to say it was from some Warriors media thing. It was saying that this is the best 3-point shooting trio that the Warriors have ever had.
Yeah, I did see that.
Now I see why Katie left.
Yeah.
But I think he could be a very big part to a team that, is trying to pick back right up where they left off, before all
Yeah.
the injuries and losing Katie and all that happened. And I really love that addition for them. Like I said, I see him closing a lot of games and being implemented in a small ball lineup, with Draymond at center, Otto at the 4, Wiggins, Clay, and Curry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good filler guy. I still have questions about his durability, obviously.
Yeah,
But
it's just a matter of staying healthy.
yeah, I think they don't have a whole lot of time to contend, and Otto will help them with that.
Right.
So
Yeah, no, for sure.
yeah,
And moving on to the Houston Rockets, a team that a lot of us don't really have a lot of expectations for. This is a little tough to figure out an underrated guy on this team because,
yeah,
it's a whole lot of young guys and a lot of other guys maybe more in like the twilight of their careers. But this one, I'm going to go with Daniel Tyce. Another player I liked on the Bulls here too. He's kind of in a weird position, like I said, on a rebuilding team, but Tyce is a solid defender down low, and he's still agile enough to not get killed on, ball screens or anything like that. On the other side of the floor, he's a decent scorer inside as well too, while also being a career 33% shooter from 3. So obviously he's not a sniper out there, but he
you're
has
right.
some ability to stretch the floor.
Yeah, he was on the Bulls for a little bit, and I liked him in the Celtics too.
Yeah.
And he really just came off the bench, sort of brought toughness, a little bit of rim protection. He's a big body. He hustles. He'd be a great end of bench guy in a contending team. On the Rockets,
Yeah, exactly. That's the
yeah,
thing is like I don't care to see him put up 18 points per game on the
yeah,
Houston Rockets. I kind of hope he gets out of there. But who did
yeah.
you have?
I had Jayshawn Tate.
Okay.
Jayshawn Tate, yeah, small forward, sort of a combo forward. Rookie last year, but he's 25. Came out of college. Did you know there's a stat? It's not really a stat. It's a fun fact that Jayshawn Tate was teammates with D'Angelo Russell at Ohio State.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
That's weird because D'Lo's what, like 6 years into the league?
yeah. He was drafted in 2015.
I was a senior in high school the year that D'Lo got drafted, and now
Yeah,
I'm 3 years out of college.
and Jayshawn Tate is still going into his second year in the league.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man, I'm trying to figure out how that even overlapped then. Like,
I guess they were. Well, D'Lo went 1 year at OSU, I think, only.
yeah, he
No,
went
they were
1 year.
both freshmen. They're both the same
Oh,
age.
okay.
They're both 25.
Yeah, they're both because I know D'Lo's a year older than me.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah,
That's weird. Really
yeah.
weird. That
Yeah, but I
D'Lo's
like.
like a near max contract guy, and Jayshawn Tate's in his second year in the league.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's funny, but I
Wild,
like
but
Tate. Not I didn't have a. I had sort of a tough time picking Rockets players that were underrated.
is he about to start on this team? I don't
I
even I don't
I
even
don't
know.
I don't know. I don't know either. He had a solid rookie season. Put up some points. He can shoot. I remember him getting a lot of respect from Harden when Harden was on the Rockets for 2
Right.
seconds when that he was here. But I think he's got a lot of potential. I think he could work out, and I think when people mention the Rockets' young core, guys like Jalen
Green,
they
or
don't really mention Jayshawn Tate, and he could be a big part of this team or some other team moving
yeah,
forward.
true. He kind of gets overshadowed by Jalen Green and like
Yeah,
Kevin Porter Jr. and guys like
right.
that. But I'm gonna keep an eye out for Jayshawn Tate this season.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Now moving on to Los Angeles' team, it's the LA Clippers. For this one, I'm gonna go with Luke Kennard. He had a really weird end to his season. I think he had like 19 DNPs in the last like month and a half of the season, which is weird. But especially after getting the contract that he did,
Yeah.
But with Kawhi's absence, they're going to need a lot of guys to step up, and Luke Kennard's going to be one of them. He showed in the Mavs and the Jazz series that he can still be an offensive boost on that team, whether he slides into the starting lineup now or if it's still going to be off the bench, because he showed that he can still be effective, whether it be off the catch and shoot or off, dribble handoffs with Reggie Jackson. But he's a player, like I said, he became underrated just with how little he played at the end of the season, but I think he can be a solid player going for this season without Kawhi.
You think he'll start?
It's either going to be him or I would start Terrence Mann, But
Yeah.
if Terrence Mann has injury issues or whatever, I mean, I could still see Kennard starting a decent. I mean, he's an NBA starter, I think, on a lower
I think
end.
so. Yeah.
On a lower end of a team.
Yeah. Yeah. The Clippers. I mean, they don't. It's not like they have much of a choice, but yeah, with
Right.
Kawhi's injury, yeah.
Yeah. What
Anyways,
about you?
I had a guy who I'm not even really sure is underrated. I think he is, just because he's not. When you look at what he can do now as opposed to what he could do a couple of years ago, I guess he is. It's Marcus Morris.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think he's one of the better glue guys in the
yeah.
NBA right now.
He can shoot really well. That's much improved from a couple seasons ago, when he was messing around on mostly bad teams. He's like, he can shoot at a pretty good clip. You definitely have to respect him. He can score inside, pretty good defensively too, really switchable.
Yeah.
Can play all sorts of positions. I really, just for a contending team, Marcus Morris is definitely a guy you want on your team.
Yeah, 100%. And like same thing going back to what we were saying, how a lot of guys are going to have to step up on this team, and Marcus Morris is one of them. Just try to channel some of that. Were his best years in Phoenix or Boston or?
I was gonna say he was okay in Phoenix. Him and Markieff were more or less the same player there, and then when he went to Boston, they gave him a shot.
Yeah, exactly.
Started shooting more.
He's going to have to channel those Boston days, I would say. But, this is a team that's looking to win a title within the next few years while this window is still open, while you have Kawhi and while you have Paul George.
Yeah.
And Marcus Morris is going to be a big part of that, I believe. And moving on to a team that's not sniffing a title anytime soon, it's the Minnesota Timberwolves. If you want to hear our thoughts on them, go catch one of the previous episodes. But
Any of them,
for
really.
for the Minnesota Timberwolves, I'm going with Taurian Prince. It was a little bit of an underrated move this summer. They did some stuff this summer. They got Pat Bev. They moved Hernan Gomez. They got rid of Jarrett Culver's trash.
The NBA will never be the same.
Right. Yeah.
Shaking the realm.
Right. They made some moves, though, this summer, that's for sure. And I think this kind of went a little under the radar. He brings something really important to this team, which is switchability at the small forward and power forward positions. They had none of that last season between Jarrett Culver or Jaden McDaniels or anything like that. So he brings them that switchability. Plus, he is a career 37% three-point shooter, which is above league average. So having teams have to respect that, I think is really going to open things up for Cat, for D'Lo, and for Anthony Edwards. So underrated move. It's just a matter of him staying healthy, though. He hasn't showed us that he could be healthy these past few seasons, but, I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, Taurian Prince is funny because he was really good rookie season. Really surprising, I'd say. He looked like one of those late.
Is that in Brooklyn?
I thought it was Atlanta.
Yeah, you're right. He
went to Brooklyn after Atlanta.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and he was one of those late round rookies where you look and you be like, oh, he's like a Kyle Kuzma kind of guy. You look and later round pick, but he's more than serviceable because usually those guys sometimes never play or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he put up pretty good numbers and then didn't really improve. Some guys like come out of college and they play really well as rookies, and you're thinking, okay, they're bound to improve, but sometimes that's the best they're ever going to get.
Right.
And I don't think Taurian Prince has improved that much. I think he's a solid player, but really I just don't think he's going to be – he's a young guy that's like full of potential. I think he is what he is.
Right, that's the thing. What is it, his third, fourth season, I think, at this point? Well, we know what we're going to get with him. I just think it's a matter of just being healthy. And if he can stay out there on the floor and, like I said, just space the floor a little bit and bring some defensive switchability, I think the T-Wolves can win like 35 games.
Whoa. He really puts them over the top.
Right, yeah. Exactly. It could be their year. Who did you have for –
Yeah, I had a guy I think he's underrated, and I'm almost alone on his island, I have real estate on Josh Okogie Island. I think Josh Okogie's pretty solid. I think on a contending team, he could be a really, really good player, and his defensive abilities will be put to better use than being on the end of the bench at the Timberwolves.
Right.
He's like a 6'4" guard, has a 7-foot wingspan, has shown that he can score in spurts when, preseason or in summer league. He was pretty good a couple seasons ago. End of the season when the Timberwolves just completely give up all hope. So like December,
Right.
and yeah, and then I don't know. I think Josh Okogie could end up on a team in a few years maybe, and he'll really shine as a star. But on the Timberwolves, if you watch him, he does all these cool things. He plays really good defense. He guards the team's best wing player sometimes.
Yeah.
He can score. Yeah, I think Josh Okogie is pretty underrated. I just
He
don't
was
know
balling out for the
when he'll be put to use.
right. Yeah, he was balling out for the Nigerian national team
he
this summer
was.
too. Yeah. But yeah, no, that's an interesting pick right there too, because
Yeah.
he's a guy that I think for the most part has kind of been rated exactly where he's like supposed to be. But I mean, nobody really talks about Josh Okogie, and like you said, I think we could look at this a few years down the road and be like, oh, he's become a pretty solid role player in the NBA. You know, I see him. I mean, his ceiling I think is probably a good starter on an okay team. You know,
he'll be like the 5th best starter on a pretty good team, like a guy that is only there for defense, like a Caruso. Caruso started in the NBA Finals, and his role was just, play solid defense, hustle, run around on offense, get open.
Exactly.
Like they weren't looking for him to score or do too much, but that's something that Josh Okogie can do.
All right, so we'll start the petition to get Okogie out of Minnesota. I think that's what's holding them back, and a bunch of these guys back. Yeah. Moving on to a team that it was the runner-up of the NBA Finals of this past summer. It's the Phoenix Suns. This was pretty hard to choose an underrated guy because a lot of guys ended up breaking out throughout this season. You know, Cameron Payne had a really good season, and people acknowledged that. DeAndre Ayton, who had went a little under the radar, who had a weird career, up until then. He had the suspension stuff and people having a sour opinion on him, just getting picked over guys like Luka or Trae Young or all that. But I'm going to go with a new addition to the team this summer. I'm going to go with Landry Sherman. Sherman started a few games last year on the Nets with Kyrie and Harden being out, but once those guys came back, he kind of got lost in that offense. He is a terrible defender, not much of a playmaker, but on that second unit with Cameron Payne having all of the playmaking responsibilities on there too, I think it gives him a pretty solid chance to do the only thing that he does great, which is shoot the three ball. He shoots it at a 38% rate from last season, and I think that's actually going to be a really good second unit right there too, between Cameron Payne, Landry Shamet, JaVale McGee, Frank Kaminsky, guys like that. I think he's going to find his role over there in Phoenix, and like I said, just he's not going to have ball handling responsibilities. He doesn't have to play make. Just get open and shoot the three. And Devin Booker hasn't had a good backup his entire career.
Yeah.
So Shamet being able to step out there on the floor and, like I said, just light it up from three, I think is going to bring a lot to a team that is hungry and looking to get back, not only just get back to the finals, but win a championship. In the last few years, they might have Chris Paul being Chris Paul.
Yeah. I had I don't know if this guy's even underrated. I'd almost say no, but I didn't have any other better options on this team. I picked Cam Johnson just because I think he's a good player, and some fans might not realize that he's more than just a young guy that gets the occasional minute or two to run around and do rookie stuff. He's a good part of that team. If they lost him, it'd be a big loss.
And see, I didn't even mention him right there when I talked about the second unit. I talked about fucking Frank Kaminsky before I mentioned Cam Johnson. But yeah, no, for sure. Like I said, that second unit of Cameron Payne, Shamet, Cam Johnson, Frank, and JaVale McGee, that's like a really, really solid
pretty good second
backup.
Unit.
And then even there's a world too where you start Cam Johnson maybe over Jay Crowder. I think
there's scenarios where
I could do it. Yeah. I mean, just
size.
Cam's a little more athletic, Crowder's closer to the end of his career. They both probably shoot the three at the same rate, I would assume. Like, I don't see it being that far off, but there's definitely scenarios where you would probably start Cam. I mean, if you're playing against a wing player that's a little more agile, quicker, anything like that, I would start Cam Johnson. But if it's a guy more physical, if it's a LeBron, if it's an Anthony Davis, something like that, then you throw Crowder in there.
Yeah. Yeah, but
yeah, no, that's an underrated. Yeah, see, I didn't even mention him when I was talking about the second unit. But
yeah,
yeah, no, those are two guys that I think will be a really big part of this Phoenix team because this is their year to prove if it was a fluke or not.
yeah,
Everybody talks about, oh well, if the Lakers weren't hurt in the first round and if there was Kawhi in the second round or whatever like that, then things would have been different. But I mean, we don't know, and now this is the year to find that out.
right.
But yeah, interesting. And moving on to the Portland Trailblazers, one team that should be in panic mode soon. You could be very close to losing your best player in damn near in franchise history, like one of their best players for sure. But for the Portland Trailblazers, I went with a new addition that they got on the team. I'm going with Ben Mclemore. I have a feeling you might not be too happy with that, but hear me out. Hear me out.
Ben McLemore.
So let's pretend that season in LA just didn't happen.
Okay.
We
Let's
ignore
pretend
that.
Ben McLemore's career didn't happen, and he's fresh out of Kansas, full of energy and potential.
Okay, I'm going to ignore his first 6 seasons too.
Okay.
But I'm going to just think about that year in Houston, and I think the situation is very similar to that one right now too. So with so much attention being on Russell Westbrook or James Harden, people forget that Ben McLemore was getting butt-naked corner looks from 3 on that Houston team, on a team that was like the 3 or 4 seed that I remember. He averaged 10 points per game on 40% shooting from 3. With a ton of the attention being on Dame or being on CJ this season too, I think that McLemore can bring that back and just, like I said, just be a spot-up shooter again.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree. He's Ben McLemore. You could be on McLemore Island, but we'll have to. It's a wait and see kind of thing. I'm not going to put my faith in a Ben McLemore and then have him be Ben McLemore and then be like, oh,
right.
But
yeah.
if he shows out, then you could say you called it. But I will not be jumping on that train.
I'm early on the Ben McLemore hype because, like I said, I think it's going to be similar to Houston, to where he's going to get with all the open space he's going to get with, Dame getting double teamed or anything like that. Like, I think he's going to shoot the ball really efficiently. I mean, I just have to ignore that Lakers season because he was a non-factor on that team, like 100%.
Barely played.
I didn't think he fit really well into that offense, with LeBron, with Anthony Davis or anything. But he's got a chance in Portland. Who did you come with for this?
Well, I was gonna pick Anthony Simons, but realized he's not really underrated anymore. People know
he was underrated like a year or two ago. I think.
Not anymore really, because he was expecting to keep improving, keep making these leaps, and he hasn't really. I don't think. But I kind of cheated. I picked Greg Brown, rookie out of Texas, 2nd-round pick. I think he's underrated just because he should have went in the first round, and that's about as good as I'm gonna get for the Blazers. Because other than that, like who on this team is like really underrated? I don't. Nurkic maybe. Like if Nurkic is premier center when he's healthy.
I think Nurkic is like not necessarily overrated, but like I think his best years are behind him with all of the injuries and stuff like that. I mean, and you have he's shooting the 3 ball a little bit better, but like it's not like
he needs to stay healthy too. He's always hurt.
Exactly, yeah. But like, I mean, no, this was hard to pick, guys. I mean, Robert Covington's overrated as a perimeter defender at this point too, and like shoot, who else is on this team? CJ is rated fine, I guess.
Yeah, it's whatever.
Anything like that. But yeah, no, there wasn't really a lot to maybe Larry Nance Jr. Maybe. But yeah, no, a guy like Greg Brown, I don't know too much about him because if I was ever watching Texas basketball, my attention was on Jericho Sims.
Yeah, Jericho Sims and Andrew Jones.
Greg Brown, I will definitely keep an eye on him because I mean, there's an opportunity that this team gets blown up by the trade deadline. You know, and if they end up moving,
we'll see.
Right, if they end up moving,
ownership would rather have a mediocre team that barely makes the playoffs every year than a contender.
True.
So we'll see.
Yeah, but
Neil Olshey is still the GM, so
True. Yeah. But by the deadline, this team could look completely different.
Yeah.
If they end up trading Dame, if they move CJ, if Covington gets sent out of there, and it could be Greg Brown time in Portland, instead of Dame time, But yeah, no, I'll keep an eye out on him. I mean, we'll see if he even gets a ton of playing time out there too. I mean, I might watch a couple G League games too and see how he does it out there.
He's
But
a fun player to watch. That's for
interesting.
Sure.
But yeah, no, this was a team that there wasn't really too many underrated guys to pick from. That's why I had to dig deep and put my faith in Ben Mclemore. But yeah, no,
so that's
interesting.
Deep dig, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the section of this list of teams that got a little hard to rate. We're going to start it off with the Sacramento Kings. And I'm going to go with Marvin Bagley. And here in my notes, right next to it, I have just question mark.
Yeah.
I think this is just because most people have given up on Marvin Bagley. And I mean, he hasn't really shown us many flashes of potential or anything like that, but I still think in a different setting, maybe if he gets, he wants out of Sacramento, and I think that's done. I think
no one blames him.
I think on another team, he still has potential to be a okay NBA player. And when I say underrated, I mean I look at him as maybe being an okay NBA player one day, but I mean and then even looking back at him getting picked over guys like Luka or Trey or Shea Gilgeous-Alexander or anything like that, I mean, I think a lot of people have a pretty negative opinion on Marvin Bagley, but I think he can be an okay player on a different team.
Yeah, I mean, in the sense of the word of, it's not calling him good, but he is underrated just because people think he's like a sack of shit.
Right. I mean, he's
or something. Yeah.
Bagley's what, maybe like 21 years old?
Yeah, something like that. He's like 22, I think.
Like 21, 22 years old. So,
and he's on the Kings. Like, it'd be the most Kings move ever to pick him over Luka. He sucks for the Kings and then becomes like an all-star for someone else. Like, it'd be a very Kings move. I kind of cheated again just because I went with a boring pick, I think. Like, I don't even know if this guy's underrated anymore. It's Rashawn Homes. I think everyone knows. I think everyone knows how. A lot of people know how good Rashawn Homes is now. There was where I think he could fly under the radar as a guy that no one really took any thought to. Big rebounder, big inside scorer, could do cool power forward stuff. But I think Rashawn Homes is pretty underrated, especially for like casual fans.
I think that,
no one thinks like Rashawn Homes is definitely like a move the needle kind of guy. He's definitely a plus player for the Kings. Not someone you can take lightly.
Right.
Yeah.
I was gonna say there was one other player I thought of too, but I don't think you can consider him underrated with what he's getting paid. I was gonna go with maybe Harrison Barnes. He's still a solid player. He does a lot of decent things, but just with what he's getting paid, I couldn't.
He's underrated.
Yeah,
I think so.
I would say so. And I think a lot of other
people treat him like he's horrible.
Right, and I think a lot of other teams, he would be a solid addition to a lot of teams if it wasn't for what does he get paid, 20-something mil a year?
25, I think. Maybe?
Probably. I think a lot of other
Close
teams would reach out
yeah.
and want him, but I mean, just for that contract, no way. And moving on then to the San Antonio Spurs, I'm going to go with Thad Young. Going back to a little bit of what we were talking about with the Spurs. So do you remember, I think it was probably between like 2011 and 2014 when everyone would call the Spurs boring?
Well, 2014 was the year that they were actually really exciting and fun to watch because they moved the ball like a pinball.
Yeah,
and stuff like that, and they had a fun team.
But still, most the narrative around the Spurs was, this team's boring. This is boring.
No personality is
now. So they weren't boring back then, and now they're actually boring.
Yeah, no, they're really boring.
This is a team with a few underrated guys. I mean, you got people like Keldan Johnson or DeJounte Murray or anybody like that.
I just don't know what they're trying to do.
Yeah, exactly, and
They're like the
I'm gonna,
Magic almost. It's so sad. Like they're just treading water. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to be able. They're not going to get a top 5 pick probably though. They're not that bad. I just don't know what they're trying to do.
It's basketball hell. 100%,
really, it is. Yeah.
But the reason I went with Thad Young, he averaged 12, 6, and 4 last season, and very much could be the Spurs' best player. And I think he's underrated in the sense that nobody's talking about that.
That's so sad.
Because it's the Spurs. I don't expect him to finish the season in San Antonio. I would really like to see a team maybe like Phoenix or somebody like that make a move for him. I think Thad Young would be great on the Suns. That could be maybe a repeat to the finals. He would be a very good piece on that team.
Yeah, he hustles more than anyone in the league. I think that I know the Bulls never shut up about his diving for loose balls stat or something.
Yeah.
Or some weird stat that no one really cares about. But he's really, really hustle guy. I wish the Bulls kept him, but
Exactly. Yeah.
Really good. I picked Keldan Johnson. Is he still underrated?
I would say so.
He went to the Olympics, so
right, and I think the reason he's underrated is because when he got picked up to the Olympics, a lot of casual fans were like, "Who?"
Well, I knew him, but I thought it was a shock that he was an Olympian because he's really not better than I don't know who got left off. A lot of people that could have gone to the Olympics, but Pop speaks highly of him, and the Spurs certainly like him. And he's got some good measurables, but he's just, he really flies under the radar a lot, really. And he's on the Spurs. That's part of it. They're a really boring team. But, exactly. I think he could be, in a few years, he could be a big-time player, making a big-time money for someone. Maybe not the Spurs, maybe the Spurs. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. No, he does a lot of things right. That's for sure. In the limited Spurs games that I've watched. But another guy on that team, too, I really like that I think is underrated is probably Derek White.
Derek White, yeah.
But overall,
there was a point 2 seasons ago where Derek White was supposed to take a leap and kind of never did.
Yeah.
Still pretty solid, but
I think people kind of forgot about him after that. But, there's a few people on this team. You can go Keldan Johnson, DeJounte Murray, Derek White, Thad Young. That was an interesting one to pick right there. And speaking of basketball hell, it's the Oklahoma City Thunder is the next team we're going to talk about. This is a team, another one, like I said, this is kind of a hard stretch because these are a lot of young players and guys that not so many people have expectations for.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with Darius Baisley.
Okay.
He is on the ultimate rebuilding team, and that has caused him to become a full-time starter in his second season. He averaged 13 points per game and 12 rebounds per game last season. I don't ever see him being a superstar, but he has solid upside as a point forward type player, the way that he can handle the ball. And one main thing he needs to work on is his shooting and shooting it at an efficient rate because his numbers were not good last season. But if he can be a passable three-point shooter and shoot the ball better from the field as well too, he will be a starter for a long time in this league.
Yeah, this team gave me the most trouble for finding an underrated guy for the reasons that you said for the most part.
Right.
So I went with their best player on the team. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is still underrated.
I agree. So, I agree. I've had that conversation with people before.
Yeah.
Because he is the third best player in what's going to be remembered as a really good draft.
Yeah.
Because that's the Luka Trae Young draft. Right. You have a generational talent like Luka and a superstar like Trae Young, and Shai's behind them there too. Yeah, no, I agree because he doesn't get talked about at the same level as those guys. I mean, which he shouldn't. He's not the same player as Luka.
And no one watches the Thunder. Like, I don't watch the Thunder really. And when I do, I only watch Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So I don't really have a good answer for this. I thought of Ty Jerome, but I'm like, I haven't seen Ty Jerome do anything in the NBA.
Right.
So
yeah, no, I don't think Shai is a bad pick. Just with him just being on the Thunder, because a lot of people want to look at it as empty stats on a team that's not winning.
Which is just the dumb go-to the dismissal of a player.
Yeah, exactly.
People said that about Devin Booker before he got talent on his team, and guess what? He's still the same player, maybe if not better.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah. 100%. I like that. I like that pick
still
right there.
under the radar. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And moving on to the next team, it's the Utah Jazz. And this is another one that they've always kind of had underrated guys on their team. A lot of guys, like how we described the Mavericks. These are a lot of Jazz guys right here. And for my pick, I'm going to go with Bojan Bogdanovic.
That was my pick as well.
I think he's probably the best player on this list that we've named.
He's not better than Shai, but
at least on the players that I named.
Yeah.
I think he's the best player.
He's really good. But he was on the Pacers. He was like the go-to scoring option for a while. Like he could just light it up, and he can still light it up.
Exactly.
Really.
Yeah.
An all-star level scorer at a lot of times. You know, he's
right.
really solid.
I think part of him becoming underrated is because he's on a team that gets a lot of attention, but that attention is around Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. I mean, all of even the negative attention is around Mitchell and Gobert.
Quinn Snyder.
Yeah, exactly. But he
system,
averaged 17 points per game and is a really efficient scorer, shooting 43% from the field and 39% from three. He was a big part of the Jazz having the best record in the league last year, and I don't think people talk about him enough. The Jazz shot the three at a historically good rate last year, and Bojan, I think, was leading the charge in that. So it was Joe Ingles.
Solid.
Bojan was right behind him.
Yeah, he's super solid. That was a really good signing by them.
Oh, 100%.
Last season. Yeah, something like that.
I liked what they did that offseason because that was when they got Mike Conley too. So I was like, okay, the Jazz need they need a point guard and they need a shooter, and they got them both. And, I think Bojan is a very underrated player.
Yeah,
for sure. And moving on to the next team, it's the Memphis Grizzlies. And for this one, this is kind of weird to say, but I'm gonna go with Jaren Jackson Jr. I think it's weird to say because he was a top 5 pick. What was it, 3 seasons ago or something like that?
He was the
4th pick in the 2018 draft.
I thought he was. Was it?
Went because it went DeAndre Ayton, Marvin Bagley, Luka,
Jaren Jackson.
Jaren Jackson, Trey. Yeah,
and then Mo Bamba.
Jesus. But talk about a fall off right there. Yeah, but like I said,
it's fall off if you're never on.
That's true. Yeah,
I mean,
you're right.
I guess that's what a bust is. But
true.
Holy shit, his career has been nothing so far.
That's for damn sure. But
pour one out.
I think the reason I say this too is because with the emergence of Ja Morant, and with him being injured a ton too, I think a lot of people forget that he's supposed to be Ja's number 2 option. And he has shown major defensive upside. He has potential to be the best defender in the league one day. And just a few things he needs to improve on. You know, he needs to get better at rebounding. He only brought in 5 boards per game, and he shot a terrible 28% from 3. And if he improves that, I believe he can be a star in the league. You know, like I said, the defensive potential is there. And he just needs to pick his game up offensively.
Yeah, the potential's there. I think this is one of your only picks that I really disagree with. I don't think he's underrated at all. If anything, I think he's overrated.
In what sense?
I think he's inconsistent offensively. Defensively, he gets a lot of blocks and steals, but he's one of the absolute worst at fouling. He cannot stay on the floor, and it's been well documented because he's led the league in like fouls per game, I think, for maybe even a couple seasons if you adjust it per pace and everything.
Yeah, because he was getting I think it was during the Jazz series, he was pretty bad with when it came to defending Rudy.
Yeah, you have to stay on the floor. You get 2 fouls in the NBA, you're off the floor for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big part of it. When he came out of college, he was billed as this stretch 5 kind of guy, and like you said, you can't trust him from 3 really.
Oh.
He's really inconsistent. And I think people expect him to be this really good second option, but if he's your second option, how good of a team can you really be? You know,
right.
I mean, I don't know if he's overrated or whatever. I really don't think he's underrated, though. I think he's properly rated, maybe.
So who did you pick?
You're going to hate me for this.
Let's hear it.
I picked Sam Merrill.
I thought you were going to say Romeo Weems.
I can't believe I missed that. That would have been the premier homer pick.
Oh, yeah.
Because he got, but yeah, Sam Merrill, point guard out of Utah State, Mountain West basketball. I was a big fan of him. As an avid Mountain West fan watcher, you can watch the games at like 11 p.m. Central, and they just go until 1 a.m, and the teams are all terrible. And there's some players every now and then. Point guard, I guess I don't know what his player comp would be. Pretty good shooter. You might see some more of him this season. Yeah, I don't know. I think Sam Merrill could be a good rotation guy ahead of like Tyus Jones or someone like that.
Yeah, he's a guy that I really don't know a lot about. I'll keep an eye out.
Underrated, huh?
Yeah, I guess that's a real underrated pick right there.
Yeah.
But see, we need to make sure we're picking underrated guys that aren't just ass. Because we could be like, ass. Well, I don't know anything about him.
I mean, he's underrated. That's why.
Oh, all right. I'll keep an eye out when I'm watching.
He could be like a Landry Sherman type if he gets it going. Yeah.
Keep an eye out when I'm watching Grizzlies basketball.
Who was I supposed to pick on this fucking team? What Grizzly was I supposed to be where you'd be like, oh, yeah, it's a good pick? But none of these guys are underrated.
I was between Kyle Anderson.
Slow-Mo Anderson? It's like, who's like, oh, yeah, who's underrated? Slow-Mo Anderson. He's really awesome.
I think he could have been a pick. I think Brandon Clark could have been a pick, maybe, or
like Steven Adams or someone like.
No, he's
Chris Dunn, Anthony Melton, all these guys.
Chris Dunn sucks, man.
So I don't know who I'm supposed to pick here. So give me my Sam Merrill pick.
I'll keep an eye out for him this season. But moving on to the final team in the Western Conference, it's the Los Angeles Lakers. And
I didn't have a great one for this either, but you can go.
I have an okay one.
I think I'm in the same boat.
There's not a lot of underrated guys on this team. That's the problem.
No, they're really an established team with a lot of vets. I was between two guys, and the pick that I picked, I don't think he's underrated really, but it's the best that I got.
The same guy because
I picked
Malik
Rajon Rondo. That was the other guy I was debating with, because I think Malik Monk could really be one of the only guys that has really high energy infusion of youth kind of guy on the roster. Mm-hmm. Decent shooter, really athletic. Might have some untapped potential because he was supposed to be better than he was, I think, coming out of college. And the Hornets, I don't think he's happy with where he's at potential-wise. But, yeah, I think that's a good pick.
I think that part of why he's become a little underrated is because the addition of him got overshadowed by big names like Russell Westbrook and Melo, and then them also bringing back favorites from that championship team like Dwight or Rajon Rondo. And I think he's just a decent player, and I like his fit on this team. He averaged 11.7 points per game last season on 43% from the field and 40% from three. He's probably the best option on this team to start with his shooting ability, and is a good fit next to Russell Westbrook. But like I said, I think more of it is just his addition getting overshadowed by, the additions of Westbrook or Carmelo Anthony or anything like that. But I want to hear your reasoning for Rondo.
I just think, like, as a player, he's whatever. He sort of the field general, and that's the only thing he can do. Decent, respectable from three, which is really surprising because his entire career he hasn't really been that at all. I say respectable. I'm not saying he's a knockdown shooter or anything like that, but he's respectable now where you have to cover him on the perimeter, and he will hit open shots. And I just think he can be a really good field general next to LeBron, even when LeBron's not on the court. I think the Lakers played better with him when he was playing for them in that finals run in 2020.
Right.
And I don't know about underrated. A lot of people know what Rondo does. Like, that's what he does.
Yeah.
He's basically like a player coach at this point. But I just think he's like an X factor guy. The Lakers will play better when he's coaching them up and calling out offensive skit sets and stuff like that.
Exactly, and like we said, this was a hard team to pick a real
Yeah, it was really, really
underrated guy.
tough.
I mean, there's not. I mean, maybe no. I think Talon Horton Tucker's
What
gotten
about what
overrated.
about LeBron?
Right? Yeah,
People
that guy.
people are counting him out.
Anthony Davis, in the sense that,
If he's healthy.
yeah, Anthony
Yeah.
Davis in the sense that people might have forgot how good he was just because he was hurt
Right.
all this season. But everybody
Right.
knows Anthony Davis is a superstar when he's not
Yeah.
injured all the
Yeah.
time. But maybe a guy like Kendrick Nunn or something. But
Yeah.
still, like I said, not
Wayne
not a lot of
Ellington is
options.
pretty good shooter.
But still, like I think he's rated perfectly like where he's at.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'd
okay,
say
Ron,
Taylor
I think
Horton Tucker because that's the Lakers think he's this like future Hall of Famer, but he's just a dude.
Yeah, I think he's solid. Like I think he'll be an okay NBA player, but like they didn't. He was the player they didn't want to trade for Kyle Lowry. Like that was what did it for them. And like, come on.
Okay, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but not too many people. Not too many people to pick on this team. But I think Malik Monk and Rondo are solid answers right then too. But if you guys enjoyed this episode, please make sure to leave a thumbs up and drop a comment. Let us know if we forgot about any players. Let us know who you think is underrated. We will be back later this week with the same format, but with the Eastern Conference teams. I have a lot of good ones for that too. I think you and I might end up disagreeing on a few of those, but
season's coming up.
Exactly. Yeah, we have a lot of
preseason basketball.
Oh yeah, but we'll probably talk about these preseason games at some point next week too. But
we got some lists coming up, I think, right? Some rankings, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so stay tuned, guys.
That'd be good.
A lot of preseason, off-season stuff still to cover, and then the season starts at the end of this month. So you're not going to want to miss out. But thank you so much for tuning in. Give us a follow on Twitter, TTD Pod on there, and like, subscribe, all that stuff. We appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week. Alex signing out.
See you guys.